Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Mandy and I like to talk about makeup panning, nail polish, and sometimes things in my real life. Today I have an update for my reading journal. This is it here. I started it last year to help me keep track of all the things I read because I like to read and sometimes I don't remember what a story is about, and if it's in a part of a series and I want to read the next one, I kind of have to go, what's going on? So I started this last year and this year we're going through it. I did not update last month because I was a little bit behind, but we are all now up to date. So let's go ahead and get it open. The journal itself I picked up at Michael's. It is just a bullet journal in an A5 size. And the sticker I picked up at Comic-Con. I don't know who the artist is, but I like it. It's a little holographic, read or die. So inside we have my title page and the contents and all of last year, which was, a combination of some scrapbooky and some dry stuff depending on my mood. It ended up being a lot more just dry stuff because I take this with me when I'm traveling and I don't always have stuff to do scrapbooky stuff. So that being said, I don't remember if at the beginning I went over my year in review, but here it is. Last year I finished 26 books and my top genre is fantasy. Yeah, and then all the things, I forgot to print these. I still haven't printed the covers, but in 2025, which is what we're in now, let's go ahead and, I already did a setup, but let's do a little review. So first I have my reading goal for 2025. My goal is to read 25 books, same as it was last year. And if you recall, I read 26 books out of 25, so I did a little bit better. This year I'm already up to 5 and we're at the beginning of March, so I've been reading 2 books a month, so we're right on track. That's good. I have color-coded the months down here, so you can see 2 in January, 2 in February, and 1 in March already. These are the books I've read. I'm keeping track of them and coloring them by the star rating, and I have the code down here. So most of the books I've read so far have been 4 stars, with one book being a 3-star. And we'll get to that in a minute. Then I started a second series tracker. This is Series Tracker 2.0, where I'm listing the series I'm currently working on by title, because back last year I made a series tracker that just tells me how many books are in a series, and some of these series have a lot of books and some do not. This one, the Mayfair Witches by Anne Rice, I finished. So I am keeping track of them here, but then also as I'm reading them, I'm keeping track of them here, which helps me so that when I finish a book, I can write down the next book in the series and know what book to look for. Otherwise, I don't know. If a book has 7 or 8 books in the series, and I finished, one, it doesn't tell me, okay, book 3. I don't know what book 3 is, so I can put it on my TBR. And now I know, oh yeah, it's Prentice Alvin is the next one in the Alvin Maker series. And then I have a new one I started, which is over here, but I haven't calculated how many books there are in the series yet because there seems to be quite a few. So that is what I'm working on there. And then here we have my reading log where I do the title and the author, the date I finished it, the date I started it, the date I finished it, and the rating I gave it. And as you can see, I have finished 5 books so far. And my January setup, so I started a calendar where I keep track of what book I read on what day, so I can kind of see how long it takes me to finish a book. This one here, Taltos, was quite a long book, and it took me longer than this. I actually had started it on December 26th, so that tells me there. And then I have a little stats to review. I finished 2 books, 951 pages. The formats, one was physical, one was digital, and my average rating was 3.5. Throughout the month, I did read 3 different books and only finished 2 of them. The third one carried on. So that being said, we have this page here, which is blank because I left it. If you can read it there, it says graphic because I use Storygraph and Goodreads. I kind of combine them. I use Storygraph to keep track of all my stats, and I printed out my stats for the month, so this gives in a physical glance what things look like. So let's go ahead and grab my handy dandy glue stick, the really cheap disappearing purple glue stick kind, and we're just gonna slap this guy in here. And you can see here my first book I finished of the year. I have a little review and artistic layout. I just kind of use colors based on the cover of the book and some of the lettering of the style and little bits of drawings to tell me a little bit more about the story. I don't think I'm going to get this in here perfectly straight because I don't know if I even cut it perfectly straight, but we're going to give it our best shot. Alright, smooth that in there, and this way I can have a nice glance. See, this is the book, and this is it. I didn't have yellow at the time, so I used orange. Since I am filling this out sometimes while I'm traveling, I have to work with what I have, and I don't always have all the colors that I want available. So here we can see a little bit more what days I did a lot and what days I did not, how many pages per day. The categories, this says there's 1 book in fantasy. Don't know why. Don't know what they classified the other one as. 1 was fiction, 1 was non-fiction, 1 was digital, and 1 was print. So the other book I finished was called Forest Magic, and it was about magic and trees. And yeah, and that was my little write-up. Sometimes there's more information, and sometimes there's just a, this is a non-fiction, so there wasn't a story recap to go over, but it just kind of a review of what I thought of the book. So that is it. And then we move on to February. On January's calendar, I want to point out that I put in the days of the month to help me keep track. This time I decided I would write down how many pages per day I read so I could see at a glance what days I did it a lot. And it seems that a lot of times the end of the book has a lot more pages read because there's usually those extra pages at the end that you don't really read, they're just extra. So again, I was working on 3 books. I finished 2. That would be Taltos that I started in December, Red Prophet, and The Dead Witch Walking, which I started and finished in March. But this gets you an idea of how long it took me to finish, since I am not keeping track of specific average book rating times it takes, although it does say here average time to finish was 9 days. That's because the digital book took me very few days to read. This Forest Magic, I read it in like 5 days. So, yep. So that's how February is looking. These colors I'm using in the book coordinate with my bullet journal. That way I'm using the same markers in both. So 2 books, 668 pages. So not as many. I also did have 1 day I didn't read. Both books were physical, and my average rating was 4 because they were both 4-star books to me. So the books I read was Taltos from Anne Rice, and this was the conclusion of the Mayfair Witches series, which I forgot to write up here, but I try and write what series it's part of here. I didn't go over this in the first ones, but I put the title, the dates I read it, who the author is, and the star rating. So if we go back here, this is Soul Music. It is by Terry Pratchett. It is part of Discworld. It is number 16, and I read it from January 1st to the 13th, and it had 5 stars. And so then I recapped that. Sometimes I like to write in cursive, sometimes I print, just depends on what I feel like. This one, Red Prophet, was Tales of Alvin Maker number 2. I read it from February 3rd through the 17th. It's by Orson Scott Card, and it was a 4-star read. And then instead of in January, I put the graphic behind the calendar. This time I left it at the end, so we have that one here, and we'll do the same thing. And we're just gluing this in, just going around the edges. I don't think I cut it very straight, so it's my book, so if it's not straight, that's okay. I don't mind. If it bothers you, I'm sorry. Alright. Here we go. And so this just recaps the information that was on the front, the number of books, the pages, the average rating, the 2 book covers, and the average pages. And this month it took me 20 days to finish a book. One was fantasy and one was considered, well, they were both considered fantasy, but Taltos by Anne Rice is also considered horror. And then we have that, and then all print and all fiction. And so we come to March, and the color scheme is green, and I finished this book from the previous month. So I started the book here, finishing it here, and then I started another book while I was waiting for a library book that came in. The library book came in, and so I've started that and put that one on pause. And so I'm working on 2 books technically right now. One of them is paused while I finish the library book, because we all know library books take priority. So yeah, and that's how far I am so far. Let me know down in the comments if you would like to see me work out, make one of my spreads for my next book that I finished. If you have any comments, feedback, or suggestions. And until my next video, take care of yourselves, stay true to you, and remember, I love you no matter who or what you are. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye!